Now that we have an understanding of the different file formats that we can use in web design, and we understand where we should be using these different file formats, we're now ready to start saving things out of Photoshop. And we're going to be doing so using a command, a dialog box in Photoshop called Save for Web and Devices. And this really is the best way to save out JPEGs, GIFs, and PNGs. Of course, what you could do if you wanted to is you could simply choose File Save As, and then from the format menu, you could choose JPEG or GIF or PNG. You could certainly go that route if you wanted to, depending on the type of file that you have available. But as I say, using this command called Save for Web and Devices is a much better approach. What this process really is referred to is image optimization. And what that means is I want to keep the quality of my image as high as possible while reducing the file size as much as possible. And a lot of this ties into the settings that each file format gives us, but it also ties into the file format that we're actually using for the particular image. So again, I could take a file like this, the chapter title.psd, and I could save it as a JPEG. That's fine. I could certainly do that. But I'm not going to get the best quality with the smallest file size. I'm not going to get the best image optimization that's possible for this particular image. It might be better instead to try something else, try a PNG, right? So there is a certain level of experimentation that goes along with all of this. So what I want to do in this exercise is I want to give you a tour of this dialog box, this Save for Web and Devices dialog. And then what we'll do in the upcoming exercises is I'll show you exactly how to save out JPEGs, how to save out GIFs, and how to save out PNGs. So for this example, I'm going to use my scientist2.psd file. I still have him open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up to the File menu, and then down to Save for Web and Devices. This dialog box is massive, as you can see, and there's a whole lot going on. So let's take a quick 5-cent tour of the dialog, and then we'll actually get into saving out our JPEGs, GIFs, and PNGs. Starting off over on the left-hand side of the dialog box, we have a very small toolbox. We have a hand tool there and a slice select tool and an eyedropper and a magnifying glass and so on. That's all fine. And then across the top, we have 4 tabs. We have Original, Optimized, 2-Up, and 4-Up. Now, keep these tabs in the back of your mind. We're going to come back to these guys in just a moment. And then most predominantly is the stuff that's going on over on the right-hand side. And I would argue that this area is probably the most important area in the entire dialog box. So what I would do is I would come into the Save for Web and Devices dialog box. And the first thing that I would do anyway is I would head for this menu here, this pull-down menu here, and this is where I can choose the file format that I actually want to save the current image out as, right? So there they are. There's GIF, there's JPEG, PNG8, PNG24, and you know there's another one, WBMP, which I never use. You can use this file format if you're ever creating graphics for mobile devices like smartphones and things like that. I'm not really into that kind of stuff, so I never bother with it. But anyway, so how it works here is I would come in here and I would select, for example, JPEG, and then in the area below, sort of in this area here, I would get all of my options, all of my image optimization settings, if you will, for the selected file format. So what I see here are all of the settings for JPEG. If I go and switch this to GIF, for example, now I get all of my GIF optimization options, right? So that's certainly possible. Or what I could do, by the way, is I could choose a preset from this preset drop-down menu. I could say, all right, give me GIF 68 no dither, whatever the heck that means. And then all of those options would then load into this sort of this bottom area. Or I could say, give me, let's see, JPEG at low quality. How would that look? And then, of course, all of those settings load in, right? Okay, so I hope that makes sense. There's some additional options down towards the bottom. We can resize our image if we want. So the width and height of my scientist is 360 by 611. And then what's interesting to note as well is below the image, we have the file format, which right now is set to JPEG. and I have the size of the file. So this guy is just shy of 14.5K or kilobytes. In other words, he's tiny, right? And then it's telling me here that it would take 4 seconds to load this image on a 56.6 kilobit per second modem. Now, I want to go back to the tabs across the top. I want to show you something here. What you can do, and some people really take their time when they're optimizing their images, and they really try to get the best. They try to squeeze as much out of their image as possible while keeping the best quality possible as well. What you can do here is you can flip over to your original. This is how my original file looks. That's my original scientist. I could then flip over to optimized, and what the optimized tab shows me is my image as it would look if I were to save it out as a JPEG using the following settings, right? So that's kind of cool. So I can do a before and after, preview there if I want, and I can definitely see some differences between the original and my optimized. Or what I can do is I could say, can you show me a 2-up view? Show me the original and the optimized side by side. I want to compare the two side by side. So there's my original there on the left, and there's my optimized on the right. Now, as I say, some people go even further with this, and they really take their time and they really try to crush out as much as they can out of their images. So they go into a 4-up view. So there's my original in the top left corner. There's my JPEG at the low quality in the top right corner. And then it gives me additional settings. There's a JPEG at just 5 quality. And then in the bottom right, a JPEG at 2 quality. So what's great about this is, as you can see, the 2 quality has the smallest file size, but he also looks the worst, doesn't he? So this whole process of image optimization really is a balancing act. We want to get the best quality with the smallest file size. And again, a lot of it is dependent on the settings that we use, which we'll talk about in just a second there in the top right. But a lot of it is also dependent on the file format that we choose. And that's why I keep stressing this. It's really about using the proper file format for the type of image that you have. So if you recall from the previous exercise, I said that I wanted to save out my scientist as a GIF. And you'll see how to do that in just a little while. For now, though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel out of this, because what I want to do with you next is I want to save out the barn1.psd. We're going to save this guy out as a JPEG.